Hi, Jeff Wilson here with the Images of Eden Band. I wanted to thank John and for the other great questions that we've been getting and take a moment to talk about myself, my background as a guitar player, and maybe share a little bit about the equipment that I use. So I've been playing guitar for a pretty long time. I was born and raised in Annapolis, Maryland. That's my home. I live fairly near there now, and all my family lives around here. And so I've been playing around the Baltimore, Annapolis, DC area for a really long time. And I started playing guitar in 1987, if you count bass guitar. I switched over to regular electric guitar in 1989. I still have my old Rickenbacker bass. I have the guitars I generally had when I was a teenager because I tend to get the best guitar I can afford and hold on to it for the long haul. And as I get comfortable with those, that informs guitar decisions that I make later on. So for instance, the guitar that I'm playing primarily with Images of Eden is an Ibanez Q547, but it has attributes of a couple guitars that I have that I'm really comfortable with. One of them is a Steinberger guitar, the headless type of guitar that I really love. And also it has an Ibanez type of feel. In the practice space, I have a Schecter 7-string guitar. So in the live situation, it'll primarily be the Ibanez and the Schecter. When I'm in the recording situation, I have a lot of flexibility and I can choose whatever's available to me. So while I'm primarily using this one on a daily basis, I'll show off a couple of other ones that I happen to have handy. For instance, if I'm doing a lead line, I might try different sounds because depending on the wood, the pickups, the electronics, you can get a lot of different sounds. So here's a vintage Gibson. I guess 2001 might be vintage now. A Gibson SG Special. Got this about 5 years ago. And I also have for lead and recording, I use a Sir Strat type guitar. This is a mahogany body. My Ibanez is a NATO wood body. So the wood matters, and the electronics obviously matter too. So maybe a couple words also on players that I love, because that will give you a feel for, I think, where I came from musically. When I was growing up, the first rock album that I ever got after Hall & Oates, which I still love, is Van Halen's 5150 album. And then another friend down the street had the first two Van Halen albums on vinyl. So that was like how I got kicked off. And I remember playing a gig, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago. And I was like, okay, just channel your best Hendrix right now. And then somebody comes up to me at the end of that set and says, that was a fantastic Van Halen imitation. So those early influences really have a tendency to stick. I also tend to love all the different guitar players who work with Ozzy Osbourne. So obviously Randy Rhoads, a big influence. Jakey Lee, amazing. I've got a couple of Jakey's picks on the wall behind me. Meeting him was a big moment for me. Of course, Zach, Joe Holmes, all the players that have worked with Ozzy over the years. Don't forget Brad Gillis. And I like a lot of jazz and fusion players too. So I'm a huge fan of John McLaughlin, Al Di Meola, certainly Alan Holdsworth. I can probably just keep rattling off names from there. So I think that kind of gives a little taste. I also like a lot of players that you might not expect. So Grant Geisman, who was the player for Chuck Mangione for many years. Or Andy Timmons, who has these fantastic sort of shred guitar metal albums, but he's Olivia Newton-John's guitar player. So there's some interesting inspirations in strange places. Little word on gear. So I've already mentioned some of my guitars, but I haven't mentioned my amplifiers yet. So in terms of live playing, there's an EVH 80-watt rig that I've got that is already in the rehearsal space. I think it uses 6L6 tubes, about 80 watts. So I really am like an old school analog tube amp kind of guy. I have all kinds of different amplifiers for different jobs. So behind me are my Marshalls. That's not really quite the average setup. It's a Marshall tube amp. Usually those go with the EL34 type tubes. I like the KT77s, put them in there. I have a Mesa Boogie amp right over here to my left, which uses the 6L6 tubes, a little more like the EVH gear. So in any event, I really enjoy nerding out with the gear. And if anybody posts comments or additional questions, I'm more than happy to sort of keep going down the rabbit hole and talk about some of those gear ideas. A moment on pedal boards. So I'm a huge Boss pedal fanatic. So I've got this digital board, like my go anywhere, do anything kind of board. This is great. You can plug into almost anything. I got this about a year ago, so it's not far from the latest tech. But I have analog versions of most of the pedals that are in the board. So I use those as well. And in recording situations, whatever's available. So it might be analog piece, it might be a digital piece, whatever really sounds right for the situation. And we can get positioned properly, because recording and live playing are really very different things. For me, live playing is my favorite part of the entire process. I like all the parts of the process. I also especially like jamming and collaborating, writing with others. And in Images of Eden Band, there's really such a rich catalog of material, and I'm really looking forward to bringing it out to the road. Anyway, if there's any other questions, I hope I was able to give a little bit of useful information, and I look forward to talking soon. Take care.